So what up, my fellow leaders? I hope you guys are having a phenomenal week. So last week we talked in our leadership moment teaching about compassion and how a leader has to have compassion and your level of compassion is going to determine your level of leadership. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about but just at a different slant, different angle. I think a lot of times whenever you talk about leadership, everybody desires leadership because they see leaders as the ones getting fame. They see leaders as the ones who people look to and have. There's just a level of, man, everybody wants to be that person, and that's why I want to be a leader. I think the thing that we have to understand about leadership is this, that your level of leadership, like we talked about last week, it's involved with your compassion. Your level of compassion determines your level of leadership. But the higher you get in leadership, the more of a servant you actually become. Jesus said this. He said, if any of you wants to be the first, you have to be the last. He said, the greatest among any of you is to be a servant. And I think a lot of us don't see servants as leadership. We see leadership as having servants. We see leadership as having people who do things for us and having people who, whatever that looks like in your specific context. But really, leadership is about how much are you willing to give yourself to other people. As you rise in leadership, as you go up in the levels of leadership, you're also going up in the levels of giving yourself to people. And that's a big sacrifice. And that's something that some of us may not be willing to do. And that's probably the reason why some of us really aren't getting the level of leadership that we desire. Because God's asking us to give ourselves and asking us to give a sacrifice, and we don't necessarily want to do that. And so I want you guys to realize that as you are even where you're at right now, as student leaders, as leaders in your high schools, as leaders in what on your teams or whatever, if you really want this status of leader, you have to realize the sacrifice that's going to come with that. You don't just get to do your own thing anymore. You don't just get to do what you have to not just live for yourself and your own needs and your own desires. You need to start living for the needs and the desires of other people. I remember whenever I was younger, God kind of gave me a phrase that I think really brought me through a lot of stuff as far as leadership. And it was this, and I posted it up on my mirror so that I would always have it set in front of me. And this phrase was, my life is not about me, it's about people. Well, what does that mean? That phrase dictated everything that I did. My life is not about me, it's about people. If somebody needs something from me, I'm going to make sure I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to give it to that person. What's that look like for you? How much of your life currently is being lived for yourself and for your own needs? And how much of your life is currently lived for the needs of others? And I don't just mean that you do good things. I mean, how much sacrifice are you actually, like a sacrifice is something that you don't want to give. It's going to cost you something, whether it's your time, your money, your talent, your emotional, like I want to feel mad, but I know I shouldn't be, or whatever that looks like. That's what a true sacrifice really is. And Jesus and God perfectly exampled this. If you look at the night before Jesus went to the cross, he was saying to God, I don't want to do this. If there is any other way, please, let's do it that way, because the cross does not sound fun. But what made Jesus an incredible leader was the fact that despite the uncomfortableness of what he had to do as a leader, he still did it. Are you uncomfortable right now? I would venture to say, if you are not uncomfortable, if there's not some level of sacrifice, then you're probably not as high on the leadership status as you think you are. What did Jesus say? He said, if you want to be great, you got to be a servant. A servant's life is hard work usually, and it's completely not about them, but everything for everyone else. So my encouragement today is, how much of your life are you living for you, and how much of your life are you living for others? The more that you begin to live for others is when you begin to get that leadership status, and the more that you start to grow in your leadership status. The more I live for others, the more of a leader I'll be. The more I live for myself, the more of just a follower I am. So I want to encourage you guys, think about that. Post some stuff up in the comments, and also be looking at other people's comments. I want you guys to not be to steal it. You all know what I'm talking about. Just I want to get some discussion going. If you want to post on somebody else's comment, man, I would encourage you guys to do that. Let's get talking about this and encourage each other to, hey, let's start living for other people. Let's stop thinking about ourselves. Let's live outside of us. That's what being a student leader is all about.